I want to talk about a great book I read called Lean for the Public Sector. And if you're in government, you're going to want to read this book. It really has a lot of practical examples from government. It's interesting how they view the customer. They view the customer from 7 different perspectives, which I'll talk about in just a second. I did find it interesting that this book had absolutely no mention of Lean Six Sigma. It just talks about Lean. We don't hear about define, measure, analyze, improve, control, but certainly it does focus on the PDCA, so the plan, do, check, adjust, 8 steps of Kaizen improvements. And it highlights the importance of 5S. So I think those are some critical foundational components as it relates to Lean in any organization, but specifically in the public sector. The book talked about 5 principles of Lean. So how do you add value from the customer's perspective? Well, that's the number one thing that we think about anytime we're dealing with a Lean Six Sigma project. We want to think about how we're viewing our processes from the customer's perspective and the value we're adding. Talked about value stream mapping, which is interesting from the government perspective because obviously we're talking about extended value stream mapping here. We're often talking about interdepartmental processes across departments or multiple departments. How does that map out? Creating flow. Obviously, you want to create flow. What does flow look like inside a government? Pull from the customer's perspective. Now that's an interesting concept in government and finally it's about aiming for perfection. And how do you do that within government? And this book actually touches on that subject. So the 7 customers from the government perspective. First one is the customer, and that is they use the example of transit. In other words, customers have choices. You don't have to take a transit system. You can use your own car, you can walk, you can take a bicycle. There's lots of options around that. And they talk about value being the punctuality and safety and convenience is for that. And the role of government, high quality service, make it affordable. They talk about users. Now, I'm not crazy about the term users, but I understand what they mean by users. In other words, roads that are maintained, we use those roads, we use libraries, we use those, etc. And the value that the government provides is they make them clean, they make them accessible. The role, of course, in government is maintaining those and exploiting the use of those. So how do we maximize the value for citizens? And I know that in HRM in Halifax, where I live, the libraries are not just for borrowing books anymore. The libraries have become so much more. So when they talk about exploiting the use, certainly in HRM, we've started to see that experience unfold. The third role is the subject. So again, we're all subject to regulations and laws of any government authority, and the value is we all want to be treated equally. We want to be treated fair, we want to be treated fast, and we want to have access to that without cost. And the role of government is to provide transparency, maintaining those laws, and government governing those laws, enforcing and inspections, and certainly unambiguity. They certainly want to deal with providing a role there. Taxpayer is the 4th component of customers, or the 4th type of customer that they have. Expect good use of our tax money, and we all want that. So fair taxes, transparent in the use of those taxes, fast and effective use of the funds are available, and of course, collect the smallest amount possible is the government's role, which we would all appreciate. The 5th and 6th roles, administrator role, which is really about the elected officials and their role, and they want to be kept informed and so on. And the voter, we're all voters for the most part, I would say, and we want a clear and orderly process for voting. So the last customer is partner, and the partners are very much seen inside of government. These are organizations, social groups that the government would want to interact and involve. And I think of Parks and Rec, for example, and how in Parks and Rec, the services and the programs they're providing in communities, they want to involve those communities in the types of programs they're offering. So they would want to be considered as partners. Now, when it comes to Lean in the government sector, we absolutely want to think about where do we find the best and most obvious improvements? Well, in our low variation and high frequency processes. So if we can find processes that happen a lot and have a very low variation in how those processes are delivered, then we're going to be able to find small incremental changes that will have big impact, which will allow us to tackle these other components or these other areas as well. And so the learning points for me in taking away from this book was we need to balance work amongst the workers, and I'm not sure that that's always done effectively. We want to create co-principles as much as possible inside of our services, and we can actually take the form of Kanbans, and we've seen that happen, and they give some examples of that in the workplace. And also they want to talk about continuous work in progress and how that unfolds. Mobilize our employees was one of the last components to create autonomy, create a sense of fulfillment, let your staff feel that they're making a contribution, they're connecting to the organizational goals of fulfilling the government mandate. Engage them with problem solving and implementation, use Kaizen teams and so on, and really tap into that frontline expertise. I know in the programs we teach, we talk about the frontline knows best, and this is a true example of that. And finally, they talk about the Plan, Do, Check, Act, or Plan, Do, Check, Adjust cycle, the PDCA, and they actually lay those out in more detail. This book can be is filled with examples of lean approach inside of government and ideal for Greenbelt training. It doesn't actually specify again about DMAIC or Six Sigma, but it doesn't mean you can't see the application of the Six Sigma toolbox inside of this book. This book is well-founded, and there's a lot of value on just about every page. I found something worth taking away. You should consider getting this book. If you're in government and you're looking to do lean, you'll want to pick up this Lean for the Public Sector.